Okay, let's unpack this. Spider-Man is swinging back into theaters with a fourth movie, officially titled Spider-Man Brand New Day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that title probably rings a bell, right? Especially after the reality-altering events of No Way Home, where, you remember, Doctor Strange's spell made everyone forget Peter Parker is Spider-Man?
Yeah, completely wiped.
It really feels like the stage is set for a completely fresh start. You know, a brand new day for our favorite web-slinger.
And what's fascinating here, I think, is the direct echo of that title with a major comic book reset.
Exactly.
Just like that spell in No Way Home, the One More Day storyline in the comics fundamentally changed Peter's personal life. It's complete erasure of his identity from everyone's memory. It's a massive shift in the status quo.
Absolutely. And that's really the central question we're diving into today. What does this Brand New Day title really signify for Spider-Man's future on the big screen?
Especially with Avengers. Doomsday looming.
Right, especially then.
Wow.
We've gathered a lot to look at here, from the official announcement to some really insightful online discussions and breakdowns. And our goal is, well, to piece it all together.
Sort of map it out.
Yeah, we want to explore the comic book origins of this title and really think about what it could mean for both the Marvel Cinematic Universe and, you know, Sony's ongoing Spider-Man plans.
Because if you connect this to the larger narrative, the choice of this title feels incredibly deliberate.
It has to be.
It's not just a catchy name. It carries a significant amount of history and meaning, especially for comic book fans.
Definitely. So let's trace this title back to its source, the comics. Brand New Day was a pretty pivotal storyline that kicked off back in, 2008?
That's right, 2008. But this wasn't a sudden development, right? It emerged directly from the aftermath of another, frankly, quite controversial storyline called One More Day.
Yes, One More Day. People still talk about that one.
Oh, absolutely. It wrapped up in 2007, and it dealt with the serious repercussions of Peter publicly revealing he was Spider-Man during Civil War.
That whole Registration Act thing.
Exactly. The Kingpin puts a hit on him, Aunt May is tragically shot, and Peter, in just total desperation to save her life, makes a pact with Mephisto.
Mephisto, okay, talk about raising the stakes. For anyone who isn't maybe steeped in Marvel lore, Mephisto is a powerful demonic entity in the Marvel universe. So what was the cost of this otherworldly deal?
The immense price was Peter and Mary Jane's marriage.
Wow.
The deal effectively rewrote reality. Aunt May survives, yes, but Peter and MJ's relationship is completely erased from existence.
It's gone.
Like it never happened. And the world forgets Peter Parker is Spider-Man, although some people kind of vaguely remember his unmasking during Civil War, but the specifics are fuzzy.
That's quite a reset.
It is. And there's even a heartbreaking glimpse that suggests a little girl Peter briefly encounters is the daughter he and Mary Jane would have had in the original timeline.
Oof. That's an incredibly steep price to pay. So, Brand New Day picks up right after all of this has been undone. What's Peter's day-to-day life like in this altered reality?
Well, the Brand New Day comic run depicts Peter and MJ as no longer married, naturally. But they did have a significant long-term relationship that, in this new reality, ended badly.
Okay, so there's still history, just different history.
Exactly. His personal history has been subtly altered. And this era introduces some key new characters. You get people like Carly Cooper, who's a brilliant forensics expert.
Right.
Her friend Lily Hollister, who gets involved with Harry Osborn. And the costume hero Jackpot, who initially was Sarah Arrett, then later Alana Jobson.
Okay, new faces.
And it's also during this period that Mr. Negative really rises to prominence as a major antagonist.
Mr. Negative. Okay, interesting. So a host of new faces and a Peter Parker navigating a fresh, albeit maybe rather complicated, personal landscape.
Definitely complicated.
Now, this Brand New Day era in the comics, it eventually paved the way for other storylines, didn't it? Like Big Time and One Moment in Time.
Exactly. One Moment in Time served somewhat as a follow-up. It aimed to provide more clarity on the precise events of One More Day. Bit of a retcon, maybe?
How so?
Well, we discover that Mary Jane was actually aware of Mephisto's deal.
Oh.
Yeah, and she agreed to it, but with the stipulation that Mephisto would leave Peter alone afterwards. The comic revisits their wedding day, but this time Peter manages to save Aunt May using CPR, no deal needed for that part.
Okay.
But the Kingpin's target shifts to MJ's Aunt Anna instead. And here's where it gets really interesting. Dr. Strange, Tony Stark, and Reed Richards.
The guns.
A real powerhouse team-up, they collaborate to create a psychic blind spot. That's what actually makes the world forget. Peter Parker is Spider-Man in this version of events.
A superhero brain trust dedicated to memory erasure. Okay.
Right.
But what becomes of Peter and MJ amidst all of this clarification?
Well, despite all these, cosmic level interventions and rewritten histories, Mary Jane ultimately decides she still cannot be with Peter.
Even after all that, why?
Her reasoning is solid, actually. She feels it's only a matter of time before his secret identity is compromised again, inevitably putting her and her family back in danger.
Can't argue with that logic, I suppose.
So, the storyline concludes with Peter essentially alone. He recognizes MJ made a difficult choice out of love and a desire to protect him, leaving him to face a brand new day on his own.
That thematic connection, Peter facing a new beginning, albeit in isolation, it's quite powerful.
It truly is. And it's hard to overlook the striking parallels with the conclusion of No Way Home, isn't it?
Impossible to ignore. Sony clearly has a deep understanding of their source material, so this title choice feels very, very deliberate. It's signaling a similar kind of fresh start for Peter following Doctor Strange's memory wipe in the film.
Precisely. Now let's turn our attention to the upcoming film itself. We've started to see some intriguing details emerge.
Yeah, like Tom Holland himself described the movie as a fresh start during CinemaCon.
That tracks.
And we know that Destin Daniel Cretton, who is directing this installment, has mentioned a completely new Spider-Man suit.
Which is always something to get excited about.
Always. The current release date is set for July 31st, 2026. Which, importantly, places it a few months after Avengers: Doomsday.
That timing is absolutely critical, yeah. We'll definitely need to circle back to that connection.
For sure. And Cretton, he was also initially slated to be involved with Avengers 5, right? Which makes his involvement in this Spider-Man film even more noteworthy.
Definitely adds another layer. And Tom Holland also shared that he's read the script with Zendaya.
Ian, and cue the speculation.
Naturally. It's ignited hopes among fans that MJ will be returning in some capacity.
Fingers firmly crossed on that one. And then there's the casting of Suki Waterhouse. That has set the rumor mill into overdrive regarding her potential role.
Oh, yeah. Speculation ranges from, a young Jean Grey, maybe an alternate version of MJ, or even Gwen Stacy. It's all over the place.
So many possibilities.
And this raises a significant question. Who will actually comprise Peter's supporting cast as he navigates this brand new day on screen? Who's around him now?
Right, because Ned and MJ don't know him.
Exactly. The scooper, Daniel Rickson, shared some unconfirmed details from a casting call that are quite revealing, if true.
Ooh, okay. What did they say?
These details mention looking for a sharp and free-spirited woman with a mysterious past. A potentially female villain described as powerful and imposing, probably 30s to 50s.
Interesting.
A resourceful young man in his early 20s, and a no-nonsense authority figure, again, maybe 30s to 50s.
Okay, let's try to connect these potential new characters with their comic book counterparts from that brand new day era.
Let's brainstorm.
The sharp and free-spirited woman with a mysterious past. That could certainly align with someone like Carly Cooper, the forensics expert, right?
Right.
Or maybe even Lily Hollister, Harry Osborn's girlfriend.
Could be. Both fit parts of that description. The resourceful young man. Could this be a reimagined version of Harry Osborn himself? Or someone new?
Maybe. And the no-nonsense authority figure could potentially be a nod to characters like Dexter Bennett, the rather abrasive owner of the Daily Bugle during Brand New Day.
Or even some of the less Spider-Man-friendly figures within the NYPD, like maybe Vin Gonzalez from the comics. Someone putting pressure on Spidey.
What's truly fascinating here is how these potential character archetypes kind of mirror the new dynamics Peter faced in the comics following that reality reset.
Yeah, a fresh supporting cast, new challenges, potentially a new set of adversaries for him to deal with. It fits the Brand New Day theme perfectly.
And we shouldn't overlook the lingering mystery presented in Venom: The Last Dance. Remember that shadowy figure briefly seen spying on Eddie Brock?
I do.
That has fueled a popular theory that this was intended as an early tease for the introduction of Mr. Negative.
Which we just mentioned was prominent in the Brand New Day comic.
Exactly. It certainly suggests that Sony has an interest in bringing that particular villain into their broader cinematic landscape.
And if we consider this within the larger context of Sony's ambitions, introducing a character like Mr. Negative could serve as a potential bridge, couldn't it? Connecting their own universe of Spider-Man-related films with the established Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That makes sense. Okay, now let's address the big elephant in the room. Avengers: Doomsday.
The timing issue.
Yeah. Tom Holland wasn't initially included in the official cast announcement for that film, although it was later indicated that his involvement is likely.
Right, that likely is doing a lot of work.
And we also know that he's currently involved in filming The Odyssey, so scheduling could be a factor too.
This certainly presents a complex puzzle. Avengers, Doomsday, is heavily rumored to revolve around incursions between realities.
Like in Multiverse of Madness.
Exactly, but maybe on a much bigger scale. And the potential destruction of Earth 616, possibly leading to the creation of Dr. Doom's Battleworld.
Battleworld, a composite planet made up of fragments of different realities.
Okay. So how exactly does a brand new day for Spider-Man fit into that kind of cosmic upheaval? That's the million-dollar question.
It really is. The online discussions have explored a few key possibilities. Scenario 1, Peter just isn't in Doomsday at all. This would allow Spider-Man Brand New Day to be a more intimate, street-level story, focusing on Peter's personal adjustments to his new reality before he potentially gets drawn into the larger conflicts of a future Avengers Secret Wars film.
That approach would certainly allow for a more focused, character-driven narrative for Peter. It mirrors the initial tone of the Brand New Day comics, where his challenges were primarily localized and personal. Keep it small before going big again.
Makes sense. Okay, scenario 2. Spider-Man. Brand New Day could be set either before or maybe during the events of Doomsday.
Like how Ant-Man and the Wasp ran parallel to Avengers Infinity War.
Exactly like that. We might even see, say, a post-credits scene that offers a subtle link to the Doomsday storyline.
That's a clever way to integrate the two without necessarily making Peter a central player in the big ensemble film. A brief connection could provide context without overshadowing his own story. Plausible.
Third possibility. Peter might make a cameo appearance in Doomsday, but then somehow exits the main conflict. Maybe he remains in a relatively unaffected area of Manhattan while the universe-ending events unfold elsewhere.
While that provides a direct link, it might feel a bit convenient. Less impactful in terms of Peter's overall arc, maybe. But it would allow for a brief connection without significantly disrupting his Brand New Day in his own film.
True. And then we have the most intriguing and perhaps most complex scenario. What if Spider-Man Brand New Day unfolds entirely outside of the familiar Earth 616?
You mean in the multiverse somewhere? Or even on Battleworld itself?
Exactly. That raises a fundamental question about the film's setting and its relationship to the broader MCU.
Well, if Avengers, Doomsday, does indeed culminate in the creation of Battleworld, this planet formed from disparate realities under Dr. Doom's rule, then it's entirely conceivable that Spider-Man Brand New Day could be set in a version of Manhattan that exists within that Battleworld construct.
It sounds like a wild concept, but the Secret Wars comic book event from 2015 did precisely that.
It did. You had different iterations of iconic locations, including multiple versions of Manhattan, all coexisting, sort of patchwork together on Battleworld.
And let's not forget the Spider Island storyline from the comics,
where a virus gave countless New Yorkers spider powers, yeah.
That storyline was even revisited as a distinct war zone within the Secret Wars event. Talk about a drastically different Brand New Day for Manhattan. A whole island of spider people on Battleworld.
So if we consider Sony's ongoing interest in weaving their Spider-Man films more tightly into the MCU tapestry, a Battleworld setting could potentially open the door for some fascinating crossovers down the line.
Right.
Even if Spider-Man Brand New Day itself maintains a more localized focus within that unique environment. You know, the setup for the Jackal in the upcoming Kraven movie, for instance. That could find a whole new context and potential relevance within a multiversal or Battleworld scenario.
It does present a significant marketing challenge, though, doesn't it?
How so?
How do you effectively promote a Spider-Man Brand New Day set in a post-Doomsday Battleworld Manhattan without inadvertently revealing massive spoilers from the highly anticipated Avengers film?
That's a very valid point.
Yeah.
A huge challenge. However, I think skillful editing of trailers and promotional materials could manage it.
You think?
Yeah, if they focus primarily on the street-level aspects of Peter's personal journey, his adjustment to his new status quo, maybe hint at a strange new environment without showing the whole picture.
Keep it mysterious.
Exactly.
Right.
As long as the marketing emphasizes Peter's individual story and the themes of starting anew, the larger context of Battleworld could remain a significant reveal for those who experience Avengers. Doomsday first. You could hide the bigger picture.
So even within the potentially chaotic setting of Battleworld, we could still get that grounded, street-level Spider-Man story that we know and love. It wouldn't have to be all cosmic weirdness.
Absolutely. I think the inherent design of a setting like Battleworld is that it can accommodate a wide range of narratives.
Yeah.
From universe-altering conflicts to more localized, personal stories, all existing within the same overarching framework.
Okay.
You wouldn't necessarily need to delve into the broader Battleworld context unless the specific narrative of Spider-Man, Brand New Day, actually demanded it. His world could just be this version of Manhattan.
Now, there's been a fair amount of discussion around the idea of multiverse fatigue among audiences, people getting tired of it.
Yeah, you hear that term thrown around.
However, it's interesting to note that some of the most successful recent MCU projects have actually had significant multiversal elements. No Way Home itself, Loki, Multiverse of Madness.
Right. And what's truly insightful here, I think, is the nuance surrounding this concept of multiverse fatigue. Is it really an inherent rejection of the multiverse as a storytelling device?
Or is it something else?
Or is it more a reaction to how it's executed sometimes? The multiverse stories that have resonated most strongly with audiences have typically focused on meaningful character interactions.
Like seeing the different Peters interact.
Exactly. Exploring the impact of alternate realities on the core characters we care about, and presenting unique and compelling settings. It's not just about relying on random cameos or convoluted, confusing plot lines about rifts in the sky.
The animated What If series is a great example of doing it well, focusing on character within the concept.
Absolutely. It's not simply about an endless parade of variants just for the sake of it. It's about delving into different possibilities and examining the profound impact those variations have on the characters we've invested in.
Makes sense.
And a Battleworld setting, while technically rooted in the multiverse, could offer that unique and compelling backdrop without necessarily feeling overtly multiverse-y at a ground level,
So Peter's day-to-day could still feel real.
Yeah. His immediate problems and challenges could still feel incredibly real and personal, even if he's no longer technically residing in the prime Earth 616 universe we knew.
Okay, let's try and bring it all together with our key takeaways here. The title, Spider-Man, Brand New Day, carries significant weight from the comics.
Huge weight.
Signaling a fresh start for Peter after a major reality shift, much like the Brand New Day comic book storyline followed the controversial One More Day.
Sure.
The film's connection to the upcoming Avengers, Doomsday, remains a central question, with several intriguing possibilities ranging from Peter's complete absence to his story unfolding before, during, or even after those events in a potentially drastically different reality like Battleworld.
Lots of ways that could shake out.
And the idea of a Battleworld Manhattan offers a compelling framework. It could potentially accommodate both a familiar street-level Spider-Man narrative and potential connections to the broader MCU and even Sony's expanding universe.
It kind of offers the best of both worlds, potentially.
Which leads us to a crucial question for you, our listener. Considering all these fascinating possibilities, what kind of brand new day do you actually envision and hope for in this next Spider-Man film?
Yeah, what's your ideal scenario, and how do you anticipate it connecting or not connecting with the monumental events of the MCU, like Doomsday and maybe Secret Wars?
Definitely some food for thought. And hey, if you're eager to delve even deeper into this topic, maybe uncover some more clues about what the future might hold for Spider-Man on screen.
Do some homework.
Yeah. We highly recommend exploring the comic book storylines we've discussed today. One More Day, the original Brand New Day run, the 2015 Secret Wars event, and even the Spider Island storyline.
They might just offer you a glimpse into the potential paths this cinematic Brand New Day could take. Lots of rich material there.